All right, this is the first video I'm going to do in a series about precision long-range rifle shooting. I appreciate all the feedback everybody gave me. Looks like there's some interest in this, so I'm going to carry on with this, and I'm going to try to gear this more towards the beginner. Somebody that maybe has very little to no experience with rifles and is interested in getting into precision shooting. I'm going to talk about some of the features on this rifle and explain why I think this makes for a really good setup for practical style long-range shooting. So I guess the first place to start is to talk about the platform. And I'm going to say that if you're getting started in this and you don't have a rifle that's really suitable to this type of shooting, if you're going to have to go shopping, I'd recommend you go for a bolt-action rifle. There are some really good gas gun options out there now, but I think that for the dollar spent, you're going to get better performance out of a bolt-action, and it's a little bit more forgiving platform to work with as far as learning fundamentals and getting good at shooting. There's less to worry about to try to get consistency and performance out of a bolt action than a gas gun. The next thing, I'm just going to go ahead and get it out of the way. I wasn't going to talk about cartridges at first, but in case some people want a recommendation, in my opinion, 6.5 Creedmoor is probably the way to go. You could get a 308 too, and like this is a 308 rifle. I've had really good luck with this over the years, and I have shot this out to 1,500 yards. 6.5 Creedmoor is going to allow you to stretch it out a little more, and they're a little bit better performance. As far as wind goes, they're a little bit less affected by the wind than a 308, and a little bit less drop at long range than a 308. There's a reason that most of these manufacturers, when they get into this market and come up with a precision rifle offering, tend to start out offering a 308 and a 6.5 Creedmoor. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to move on now and talk about the barrel. I think as far as barrel length goes, for a more practical rifle, it's good to go with an 18 to 22 inch barrel, somewhere in that range, especially if you think you're going to add a suppressor to it. It's going to keep you from having an awkward and just, ridiculously long rifle as far as the full package goes. You do give up a little bit in velocity, but I don't think it's significant for this type of shooting. Barrel profile is another consideration, and when I say profile, what I'm talking about is the external dimensions of the barrel. Anything in the medium profile range, which is going to be heavier than a hunting style rifle, but not necessarily a full, like what would be called a bull barrel, something like that. This makes for a good balanced rifle, and it has enough mass to it that it will take heat better. It won't suffer accuracy problems from heat as soon as a thin, like a light profile hunting rifle barrel would. If you're going to run a traditional style stock like this, I would recommend at least keeping in mind that you want something that with a more rigid forend that has clearance for the barrel. So you want something that's going to allow the barrel to be floated, not contact the forend anywhere, and be rigid enough that you can't easily press on the forend and make it contact the stock. You don't want anything coming into contact with the barrel, and that includes putting weight on it, like putting the gun on a bipod and having it be flimsy enough that it contacts the barrel. Anything coming into contact with the barrel out here is going to have a potential to cause accuracy problems and throw shots off. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're shopping, is try to get something with a sturdy stock and full clearance for the barrel. If you go into something like a chassis setup, those are going to have usually plenty of clearance and be very rigid in the front end. Some of them are even going to have like a fully enclosed barrel, like an AR style, floating handguard would. So, with chassis systems, that's less of a concern. It's just something to look for on a traditional style stock. Definitely going to want to go with detachable magazines, right? These are AICS, Accuracy International magazines. A lot of guns these days are coming with this type of a magazine format. Magpul is making a version of these magazines now that works pretty good in my experience. So just avoid the hinged floor plate hunting style stocks for this type of shooting. It's going to get old pretty quick if every time you fire 5 rounds, you've got to start stuffing cartridges back in through the top of the receiver to fill up your magazine. So that's something you should consider when you're shopping. As far as the back end of the stock is concerned, You want to look for something with a grip area that has more of a vertical grip to it. That's going to give you more leverage and a more solid grip on the gun to pull it back into your shoulder. It's also going to give you a better position for your hand to get a good angle on your trigger finger when you're doing your trigger press. So that's a good thing to look for. Again, on chassis style guns, most of them are going to be built this way. Even have interchangeable grips so you can kind of get the grip angle that puts your hand in the best position. It's just you'll want to avoid the more swept back hunting style rifle stocks, because that's going to be harder to get a good solid grip on it and load it into your shoulder and not have your hand move under recoil. All right. As far as the butt end of the stock goes, you're going to want to try to probably find something with an adjustable length of pull so you can move the butt pad in and out to to fit yourself better. Some of them are adjustable as far as moving the butt pad up and down or canting it even. There can be a lot of options out there to really custom fit the gun to yourself. Look for an adjustable cheek pad on the gun. Having the ability to adjust the cheek height of the stock so that you can align your eye with the center of the scope, that's going to be really helpful. And also, that's going to be an advantage if you share the gun with anybody. So if this is a gun that you're using in your family and you share it with a spouse or one of your children, it's going to allow you to make quick adjustments to fit it to another shooter if somebody else is going to be shooting a rifle. As far as the trigger goes, most manufacturers are making good triggers these days, so they have a lot of good options out there. It's nice to get something adjustable, but even if you don't get the trigger you want in a rifle or you're not happy with it after you get it, there's usually a lot of aftermarket triggers available that'll be very good, and they're fairly easy to replace. I tend to like a 2.5 pound trigger. I don't really think it's a great idea to go much lighter than that. You want to keep the gun drop safe, and I like to have enough resistance in the trigger that if I'm using gloves or if I have cold hands and I don't have as much feeling in my finger, I can still get my finger on the trigger and make sure it's positioned properly and that I'm getting a good trigger press without having the gun go off prematurely. Another thing to look at is the scope base. So when you're looking at rifles, a lot of them now come with a built-in scope base or come with one attached from the factory. These are like a Picatinny rail section that allows you to mount your rings and adjust the positioning of it. It's a good idea to get a base that has a 20 MOA cant to it. So that's going to mean that the front of the base is angled 20 MOA down towards the barrel. So it points the scope more towards the barrel, and it allows you to have a little bit more range of adjustment in your turret when you start dialing out for long range. So depending on the cartridge you choose and the type of scope you use, that may be a real advantage for you to be able to extend your range, maybe a few hundred more yards on the long end without running out of turret on your scope. All right, last thing to talk about is the bipod. I think this is a pretty integral part of the rifle when you first start shooting long range, so that's why I'm going to talk about it now. You want to get a bipod that allows you to swivel the gun left or right for cant and keep your crosshairs true to the fall of gravity, right? You want your vertical crosshair aligned with the fall of gravity so that as you go to long range, you're not throwing shots off left or right. If your gun is canted, even a small amount, that can add up to pretty large errors once you get out to long range. So definitely some kind of an adjustable bipod like that, and something with notched legs like this. So this locks in place, and you can press one of these buttons and let it down till it locks into the notch, and then you don't have to worry about it coming loose as you shoot and losing your adjustment. Some of the cheaper bipods have smooth legs with like a thumb wheel lock that locks them in place. That's not a great thing to have. This Harris bipod, they're on the cheaper end, but they're still pretty decent bipods. You can break these if you abuse them too much, but I've had this one for a long time and it's held up good. I think it's basically the low end of what I would recommend getting for a rifle. There are some better options, but the prices go up pretty quick. So as far as the rifle goes, that's pretty much it. I know this was kind of long compared to what I normally do, but I really wanted to get all these points covered so that if you go out looking for a rifle because you want to get involved in long range shooting, you at least have an idea of some things to look for, and maybe some things that will make, you know, a better choice for you in you know, the rifles you look at. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments, and I'll try to get to them and answer them. And you know, I'll keep on going with this if everybody's interested, and you know, I'll get into optics and some other things as we go, and you know, hopefully that'll be helpful.